Millionaire visited the construction site and froze when he recognized his missing sister with a baby. Richard Thompson felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders as he drove to the construction site of the new hospital his company was funding. At 45 years old, he had built a business empire, but something inside him remained empty ever since his sister Jennifer had disappeared 2 years ago, without a trace. That Tuesday morning, as he stepped out of his imported car amid the dust and noise of machinery, he never imagined his life would completely change. It was when his eyes fixed on a woman mixing cement with precise movements, carrying a baby tied to her back with a red cloth. His heart stopped for a moment. That profile, those gestures, that particular way of tilting her head. "Mr. Thompson, are you all right?" asked Mark, the engineer in charge of the project, noticing that the businessman had completely stopped and was pale as a sheet. Richard couldn't respond. His legs trembled as he watched the woman working with determination, protecting the little one from the strong sun with an improvised hat. It was impossible, but it was her. Jennifer, his younger sister, who had been raised among butlers and chauffeurs, was now there with hands dirty from cement and simple workers' clothes. The woman raised her eyes in their direction, and Richard saw the exact moment she recognized him. Her face lost all color, and the shovel slipped from her hands, making a dull noise as it hit the ground. Instinctively, she pressed the baby to her chest and took a step back. "Jennifer," whispered Richard, but his voice was lost in the noise of the machinery. She tried to move away quickly, but stumbled over a pile of bricks. 2 nearby workers immediately helped her regain her balance, showing they had affection and respect for her. The baby, startled by the sudden movement, began to cry. "Hush, my love, hush," she whispered to the child, rocking her body in a gentle rhythm. It was the same lullaby their grandmother used to sing, a melody Richard hadn't heard in decades. The workers formed a discreet circle around her, as if protecting her from some danger. Richard approached slowly, his heart racing. "Jennifer, it's me, Richard," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I know who you are," she replied without raising her eyes. "Please don't tell our mother where you found me. For heaven's sake, Jennifer, where have you been all these years? We looked everywhere. I hired the best detectives. I was here, living my life," she interrupted, finally looking into his eyes. Richard was shocked to see how different she looked, her face tanned by the sun, her hands calloused, but mostly in her eyes there was a strength he had never seen before. Mark, sensing the tension of the situation, approached cautiously. "Sorry to interrupt, but do you know each other?" asked the engineer. "Mrs. Jennifer is our best worker," said one of the workers before Richard could respond. "She knows more about construction than many engineers out there." "Jennifer, please, let's talk," begged Richard. I can't just what?" She turned to him with eyes shining with anger. "Work honestly, take care of my son, live with dignity." The baby cried louder, and she automatically began walking back and forth, making movements that soothed the child. "Your son?" Richard was trying to process all the information. "Jennifer, I don't understand anything. Why did you run away? Why didn't you get in touch?" "Because I knew you would do exactly this." She pointed to the luxury cars parked nearby. "Showing up here with all this fuss, trying to drag me back to that suffocating life." "What suffocating life? You had everything, Jennifer. "I had a gilded prison," she interrupted him again. "And you all wanted me to marry that awful man just to maintain the family business." Richard vaguely remembered the pressures his mother put on Jennifer to marry the son of a real estate businessman. At the time, he thought it was just women's talk. "Jennifer, that was 2 years ago. Things have changed." "Changed?" She laughed humorlessly. "Did our mother stop trying to control everyone's lives?" "Look, she's worried. We all are. You just vanished into thin air, left a note saying you were traveling and I decided I wasn't coming back," she finished. "Best decision I ever made in my life." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The foreman approached the group with an unfriendly look. "Hey, Jennifer, what's going on here? The concrete isn't going to mix itself," he said, but upon seeing Richard and Mark, he stopped. "Oh, sorry, didn't know it was the bosses." "No problem, Frank," Jennifer replied quickly. I'll be right back to work. Jennifer, Richard gently held her arm. Please don't run away again. I just want to understand. She looked at his hand on her arm and then at the curious faces of her co-workers watching the scene. Frank, can I take 15 minutes? I need to sort out a personal matter. Sure, but just 15 minutes. We have a schedule to keep. Richard and Jennifer moved away to a more private area of the construction site near a pile of materials. The baby had stopped crying and was watching Richard with curiosity. He's beautiful, said Richard, trying to break the ice. What's his name? Michael, replied Jennifer, stroking the child's little face. He's 1 year and 2 months old. And the father? Jennifer hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. The father is Peter. We live together. Does he work here too? He used to, she sighed, until he had an accident a few months ago. Now he's at home recovering. Richard noticed how she spoke about the matter with naturalness, but sensed there was much more behind that story. Jennifer, I need to understand one thing. How did you end up here? How did you learn to work in construction? She looked around at the construction site that had become her second home. When I ran away from home, I had nothing, Richard. Nothing at all. Just the clothes on my back and the money in my wallet. I couldn't use the cards because I knew you'd track me. But you could have called me, you could have run back home like a spoiled child? She shook her head. No, Richard. I needed to prove to myself that I could make it on my own. And how did you meet Peter? A gentle smile appeared on her face for the first time since they'd met. I was trying to get any job. I'd looked in stores, restaurants, offices. Nobody would hire me, either because I had no experience or because they could tell I wasn't from that world. Until one day, passing by a construction site, I saw a sign asking for laborers. Richard listened in silence, trying to imagine his spoiled sister facing all these difficulties. The foreman at the time looked me up and down and said construction was no place for a woman. But Peter, who'd worked there for years, said I deserved a chance. He taught me everything. She held the baby a little tighter. Taught me how to mix cement, carry bricks, read blueprints. More importantly, he taught me what honest work was. And you fell in love, Richard completed. We fell in love, she confirmed, and Richard could see the love in her eyes. But it wasn't easy. At first, the other workers were suspicious of me. They thought I was a spoiled rich girl who wouldn't last a week. And what changed? I lasted, she smiled. I lasted through the sun, the rain, the heavy lifting, the exhaustion. I lasted through jokes, suspicion, machismo. But most importantly, I learned that it doesn't matter what work you do, as long as it's done with honesty and dignity. The baby began to stir, signaling that he was hungry. Richard, I need to feed Michael. My lunch break is now. Of course. May I join you? Jennifer hesitated but ended up agreeing. They walked to an improvised area where the workers had their meals. Richard was impressed with the simplicity of the place, but also with the camaraderie among the workers. Hi, Jennifer, a pregnant woman approached. Did you bring your lunch today or did you forget again? I brought it, Mrs. Barbara, Jennifer replied, taking a simple container from a bag. Richard watched silently as Jennifer opened her lunch and immediately set aside half to share with her pregnant co-worker. Jennifer, you don't have to... Don't mention it, Mrs. Barbara. You're eating for two, Jennifer smiled. Besides, Michael is still breastfeeding, so I don't need that much food. His sister's generosity in the midst of her own need deeply touched Richard's heart. He remembered when they were children and she always shared everything with him, even when there was plenty. While Jennifer discreetly breastfed the baby, Mrs. Barbara told Richard how the young woman had become beloved by everyone on the construction site. This girl is an angel, the older woman said. When my husband had an accident last month, she organized a collection among the crew to help with the medicine. And when I got sick because of the pregnancy, she stayed with me at the hospital all night. Richard looked at his sister with admiration. The Jennifer he knew before was sweet, but also too sheltered to develop this kind of practical empathy. Tell him about when you saved the equipment in the storm, requested one of the workers who approached. Oh, it was nothing special, Jennifer said, clearly embarrassed. What do you mean it was nothing? The man turned to Richard. In a terrible storm we had here a few weeks ago, everyone ran for cover, but Jennifer saw that the expensive machines were uncovered and went back out in the rain to cover everything. She saved over $100,000 in equipment. Anyone would have done the same, Jennifer murmured. No, they wouldn't have, said Mrs. Barbara. That's why everyone here has a special fondness for you. Richard was beginning to understand that his sister hadn't just changed her life, she had completely transformed as a person. Jennifer, he said when they were alone again, I need to meet Peter. I need to meet the man who made you so happy. Richard, she hesitated. Our family would never accept Peter. He's a simple man with no formal education. Our mother will have to accept, Richard interrupted her. I've changed a lot in these 2 years too, Jennifer. Losing you made me rethink many things about what really matters in life. You changed? How so? Richard sighed, looking at the activity on the construction site. When you disappeared, I realized I was behaving just like our father. Obsessed with money, with status, with appearances. I forgot to pay attention to the people I love. And what did you do? I started working with social projects. This hospital, for example, he pointed to the construction around them. It will serve the community for free. I created foundations, scholarship programs. Jennifer looked at him in surprise. Really? You did all that? I did. But do you know what changed me the most? I realized that all the money in the world means nothing if you don't have your family close by. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, but she still seemed hesitant. Richard, our mother has been suffering for 2 years, thinking you might be lost or in danger. She deserves to know you're all right. But she'll want me to come back home. She'll try to separate me and Peter. Not if I'm on your side. Richard held his sister's hand. Jennifer, I've learned that true family is the one that supports your choices, even when they don't fully understand them. The baby had finished nursing and was looking at Richard with curiosity. Cautiously, the businessman extended his finger, which was immediately grabbed by the tiny hand. Look at that. Jennifer smiled genuinely for the first time. He liked you. He's perfect, Richard said, feeling a tenderness he hadn't experienced in years. He looks just like you when you were a baby. Richard, there's something I need to tell you about Peter. Before she could continue, a shout echoed through the worksite. Accident! Someone got hurt in the cement mixer. Jennifer immediately stood up, handing Michael to Richard. Please stay with him. Richard found himself holding his nephew for the first time while watching Jennifer run toward the accident. To his surprise, she not only offered help, but took control of the situation with the competence of someone experienced in first aid. Miss Jennifer took a first aid course last year, explained Miss Barbara, who had remained beside Richard. She's always improving herself, studying to advance in her profession. She studies? Every Saturday morning she attends a technical building course. At night she studies at home even when tired from work. Peter stays with the baby during those times. Richard watched his sister coordinating care for the injured worker until the ambulance arrived. She had become a natural leader among the workers. When everything calmed down and the injured man was taken to the hospital, Jennifer returned to Richard, who was still holding Michael. How was he? She asked, taking the baby back. He'll be fine. Just a cut on the arm, but you acted quickly, Richard replied. Jennifer, where did you learn first aid? I took a course at the health clinic in our neighborhood. When you work in construction, these things are important. Which neighborhood do you live in? Hope Village, she answered without hesitation. It's a simple neighborhood, but the people are friendly. We have a small house, but it's ours. Richard knew that neighborhood. It was about an hour away from the family mansion, but it felt like another world. Jennifer, you said you were going to tell me something about Peter. She took a deep breath, as if preparing for a difficult revelation. Peter, he was married when we met. Richard felt a chill in his stomach. What do you mean? Wait. Let me explain, she said quickly. His wife had abandoned him years before, taking their 2 small children. He never managed to get divorced because he didn't have money for a lawyer, and she had disappeared. And now? Now we've managed to resolve it. Last year, when I started earning better, we paid for a lawyer. We discovered she had remarried in another state, so the previous marriage was automatically annulled. So you're married? Legally, not yet. But in the eyes of God and our community, yes. She looked at the baby tenderly. Michael is the product of true love, Richard. I'm not judging, Jennifer. I just want to understand the whole situation. Peter is 5 years older than me. He started working in construction at 12 to help his family. He never had the opportunity to study, but he's the most honest and hard-working man I've ever known. And do you want to get married officially? We do. But first he wants to finish recovering from the accident and return to work. He has that male pride, you know. Doesn't want to depend on me for anything. Richard was beginning to understand that Peter was exactly the type of man his family would never accept. But that might be exactly what Jennifer needed. What kind of accident did he have? He fell from scaffolding, broke his leg in 3 places and hurt his back. The doctors said he'll recover completely, but it takes time. And how are you supporting yourselves? With my salary and help from the neighbors, she said with pride. Our community helps each other, Richard. When someone's in trouble, everyone pitches in. Richard grew thoughtful. The life Jennifer had built was completely different from what he imagined, but she seemed genuinely happy. Jennifer, I'd really like to meet Peter and see where you live. Really, you actually want to see our reality? I do, but there's one condition. She looked at him suspiciously. What condition? You have to let me help in some way, not with charity, but in a way that makes sense for you. Richard, listen, you said you're studying construction, right? And that you want to grow in the profession. Yes. What if I offered you a full scholarship to study civil engineering? Not as a favor, but as an investment. My company always needs qualified professionals. Jennifer stayed silent for a long moment, processing the proposal. What about Peter? Peter can benefit too. When he recovers, I can offer a position at the company. Maybe start with something administrative where his practical experience would be valued. Would you really do that? I would. But not out of pity, Jennifer, because I saw today how respected you are here, how you've grown as a person. It would be an honor to have you and Peter working with me. Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. Richard, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything now. Just think about the proposal. He looked at the baby. Think about Michael's future too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Richard's phone rang. It was his secretary. Mr. Thompson, your mother called. She's coming to the construction site. Said she needs to speak with you urgently about some documents. Richard looked at Jennifer, who had heard the conversation and had turned pale. When will she arrive? In about 20 minutes, sir. Richard hung up the phone and saw the panic in his sister's eyes. Jennifer, calm down. Richard, I can't meet her here. Not like this. She looked at her work clothes, at the baby, at the construction site environment. Why not? You don't understand. To her, all this will be humiliating. She'll think I threw my life away, that I lowered myself. What do you want to do? I need to leave. I need to get Peter and... Jennifer, don't run away again. Richard held her shoulders gently. You're not that girl who ran away from home 2 years ago anymore. You're a strong, hard-working woman who built a life with dignity. But you know our mother. I do. And I also know deep down she just wants to know you're okay. We'll work out the rest by talking. Jennifer was visibly nervous, rocking the baby back and forth. Richard, there's something else I haven't told you. What? Peter. He doesn't know our family has money. I never told him about our financial situation. Richard looked at her surprised. What do you mean? When we met, I told him I was from a simple country family, that I'd come to the city to try to make a living. He doesn't know my brother owns one of the largest construction companies in the region. Jennifer, but why? Because I wanted him to like me for who I was, not for where I came from. And then, as our relationship got serious, it became harder and harder to reveal the truth. And now? Now I don't know how he'll react when he finds out I've been lying to him all these years. Richard began to understand the complexity of the situation. It wasn't just about the family accepting Jennifer's choices, but also how Peter would react upon discovering her true origins. Look, maybe it's time to tell him the truth, suggested Richard. What if he thinks I deceived him? What if he thinks it was all a joke to me? Jennifer, if he truly loves you, he'll understand that you did this to protect your relationship. The sound of an expensive car approaching made Jennifer instinctively hide behind a pile of materials. Richard, please, stay calm. I'll talk to her first. Pave the way. The black limousine stopped in front of the construction site, and Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson got out. At 70 years old, she still maintained the haughty and elegant posture that always characterized her personality. She wore a navy blue tailored suit and discreet but expensive jewelry. Richard, she approached her son. What is this place? Couldn't you have chosen an office to sign these documents? Hello, Mother. I need to show you something important. What could be more important than resolving the company's power of attorney matters? Richard looked toward where Jennifer was hiding. The baby had started crying, giving away their presence. Whose child is that? Mrs. Thompson looked around, irritated. Richard, this is no place to bring children. It was then that she saw a woman rise from behind the materials, holding a baby and dressed like a worker. For a moment, Mrs. Thompson didn't recognize her own daughter, but then her eyes fixed on Jennifer's face and she stood frozen. Jennifer! Her voice came out almost as a whisper. Hello, Mother, Jennifer said, keeping her distance. Mrs. Thompson looked from her daughter to the baby, then to the work clothes, to the hands dirty with cement. Her face went through a series of expressions: shock, confusion, anger, and finally a deep sadness. What are you doing here? She asked, still trying to process the scene. Working, Jennifer replied simply. Working? You? In this place? Yes, Mother. I've been working here for almost 2 years. And this child? He's your grandson. Michael. Mrs. Thompson staggered slightly, and Richard steadied her. My grandson, she repeated, as if trying to understand a foreign language. Mother, let's sit down, Richard suggested, guiding her to an area with makeshift benches. Jennifer, come closer, Mrs. Thompson ordered with a trembling voice. Jennifer hesitated, but eventually approached. Mrs. Thompson studied her daughter's face in detail. You look different, she said finally. I'm older, Mother. It happens to everyone. It's not that. You look... Mrs. Thompson searched for words. You look stronger. The baby stopped crying and stared at his grandmother with curiosity. Mrs. Thompson cautiously extended a finger, and Michael grabbed it. He's beautiful, she whispered, and Richard could see tears in her eyes. He's 1 year and 2 months old, Jennifer said softly. And the father? Where is the father? Jennifer exchanged a nervous glance with Richard. He's at home recovering from an accident. What kind of accident? A work accident. He also works in construction. Mrs. Thompson closed her eyes for a moment, as if digesting very difficult information. Jennifer, why did you do this? Why did you abandon us like this? I didn't abandon you, Mother. I chose my own life. Chose? This is a choice. Working as a worker, Jennifer completed. Yes, Mother. I chose to work honestly to support my family. But you had everything. A house, money, security. I had a gilded cage where everyone made decisions about my life for me. Mrs. Elizabeth looked around at the workers who observed the scene from a distance with curiosity and respect. And these people, do they know who you are? They know who I am, a worker who does her job well. But they don't know where you come from. It doesn't matter where I come from, Mother. What matters is who I've become. Mrs. Elizabeth fell silent for a long moment, watching Catherine's co-workers greeting her with affection and respect. They like you, she observed, and I like them. They're my family here. Your family? Catherine, your family is different. My family are the people who accept me for who I am, who support me in difficult times and celebrate my achievements, Catherine said firmly. Mrs. Barbara approached the group, concerned about Catherine. Is everything all right, dear? Do you need anything? Everything's fine, Mrs. Barbara, thank you. Catherine smiled at her co-worker. If you need anything, you know where to find me. the older woman said before walking away. Mrs. Elizabeth watched the interaction carefully. "She cares about you," she commented. "Mrs. Barbara is like a mother to me here at the construction site. When Michael was born, she was the one who taught me how to care for him while working." "Michael was born here? At the construction site?" "No, Mother." Catherine laughed for the first time. "He was born at the hospital. But I came back to work when he was 2 months old." 2 months, Catherine, It's necessary when you need to support a family," she interrupted. "And before you ask, yes, I breastfeed him during work breaks. Yes, he stays with me because we don't have money for daycare, and yes, I'm happy this way." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at her grandson, who was playing with her pearl necklace. "He could get hurt here in the middle of so many dangerous things. He's always with me or with someone trustworthy. The co-workers take care of him as if he were everyone's child." As if to prove Catherine's point, a worker approached. "Catherine," little Michael finished his water. "I brought a new bottle," he said, handing over a clean bottle. "Thank you, Mr. Charles," Catherine smiled. "This is my mother, Mrs. Elizabeth." "Very nice to meet you, ma'am," Mr. Charles greeted respectfully. "You must be very proud of your daughter. She's one of the finest people I've ever met." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at the simple man who spoke of her daughter with such affection and respect. "Thank you," she said softly. When Mr. Charles walked away, Mrs. Elizabeth turned to Catherine. "They really like you very much, and I like them. I've learned more about life and about myself in these 2 years than in my entire previous life." "Catherine," Mrs. Elizabeth hesitated, "I want to meet Michael's father." Richard and Catherine exchanged surprised looks. "Mother, are you sure?" "I am. If this child is my grandson, I need to know his entire family." "Mother, Peter is a simple man. He doesn't have the same social standing as—" "Catherine, in all these years, I've never seen you so self-assured, so strong. If this man helped you become this person, I need to meet him." Catherine was visibly moved. "There's something I need to tell you first, Mother. Peter doesn't know about our family. He thinks I come from simple origins." "Why?" "Because I wanted him to like me for who I was, not for where I came from." Mrs. Elizabeth thought for a moment. "And now you're going to tell him?" "I'll have to tell him. I can't hide it anymore." "Then let's go together." Mrs. Elizabeth stood up. "I'll meet my son-in-law and he'll meet his mother-in-law." "Mother, are you sure? The house is very simple." "Catherine, I want to know the life you've built, all of it." Richard smiled, proud of his mother's growth. "Mother, I'll ask the driver to take us there." "No, Mrs. Elizabeth said firmly. "Let's take your regular car. If we're going to learn about Jennifer's life, we'll do it respectfully." The drive to Hope Village was made in tense silence. Jennifer was nervous thinking about how Peter would react. Mrs. Elizabeth was processing everything she had discovered about her daughter, and Richard was hopeful that finally the family would reconcile. When they arrived in the neighborhood, Mrs. Elizabeth observed everything through the window: the simple but well-kept houses, the children playing in the street, the neighbors chatting on the sidewalks. "It's a welcoming neighborhood," she commented. "People here know each other. They help each other," Jennifer explained. "When Michael was born, the neighbors threw me a baby shower. When Peter had his accident, everyone contributed with food and medicine. They stopped in front of a small but well-painted house with a simple garden in front. 'This is it,' Jennifer said, picking up Michael in her arms. 'Jennifer,' Mrs. Elizabeth held her by the arm, 'whatever his reaction may be, remember that you did all this out of love, and true love overcomes any social difference.'" Jennifer smiled at her mother, feeling supported for the first time in years. They got out of the car and Jennifer opened the front door. The living room was small but cozy, with simple but clean and tidy furniture. There were plants in the windows and family photos scattered around the house. "Peter," Jennifer called, "I'm home." A man of about 30 appeared, limping slightly, leaning on a cane. He was dark-haired, strong, with large hands and kind eyes. He wore a simple t-shirt and shorts. "Hi, love." He smiled at Jennifer and kissed her forehead. "You're early today. How was it at the—" He stopped when he saw Richard and Mrs. Elizabeth in the living room. "Peter, these are my mother and my brother," Jennifer said nervously. Peter looked from Jennifer to the visitors, noticing Mrs. Elizabeth's expensive clothes and elegant posture. "Pleasure to meet you," he said politely, but Richard could see the confusion in his eyes. "The pleasure is ours." Mrs. Elizabeth approached. "I'm Elizabeth, Jennifer's mother." "Peter," he replied, shaking her hand. "And I'm Richard, her brother." An awkward silence followed. Peter was clearly confused by the obvious social difference between Jennifer and her family. "Jennifer," Peter said slowly, "can we talk for a moment?" "Of course. Mother, Richard, make yourselves at home. We'll just talk quickly." Jennifer and Peter went to the bedroom, leaving Richard and Mrs. Elizabeth in the living room. They could hear muffled voices coming from the bedroom. "Richard," Mrs. Elizabeth whispered. "They're arguing." "It's natural, Mother. He must be shocked." In the bedroom, Jennifer was trying to explain the whole situation to Peter. "What do you mean your family has money?" Peter asked, visibly shaken. "Peter, I can explain—" "Explain what, Jennifer? That you lied to me for 2 years." "I didn't lie. I just omitted some information." "Some information?" He sat on the bed, running his hands through his hair. "Jennifer, your mother is wearing a necklace worth more than our entire house." "Peter, listen. And you? Did you come here to play at being poor? Is that it?" "No." Jennifer sat next to him with Michael in her arms. "Peter, I ran away from that life because I couldn't take it anymore. Everything I've lived with you has been real." "But you could have told me, Jennifer. You could have trusted me. And if I had told you, what would you have thought? That I was a spoiled rich girl wanting to play Cinderella?" Peter fell silent, because deep down, he knew she was right. "Peter," Jennifer took his hand, "do you remember what you said the day we met? That true love has no social class." "I remember." "Then prove to me that you believe that." In the living room, Richard and Mrs. Elizabeth heard the silence that followed. They were worried about the direction of the conversation. "Richard," Mrs. Elizabeth whispered, "what if he doesn't accept it? What if it all ends?" "Mom, if he truly loves Jennifer, he'll get over this." After a few minutes, Jennifer and Peter returned to the living room. Peter still looked shaken, but had decided to face the situation. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, addressing his mother-in-law, "I apologize for the commotion. It's just that everything was very unexpected." "I understand completely," Mrs. Thompson replied kindly. "It must have been a shock to discover your girlfriend withheld important information about her background." "It was," Peter admitted, "but I also understand why she did it." "Peter," Richard approached, "may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you love my sister?" Peter looked at Jennifer, who was holding Michael anxiously. "I love her more than my own life," he answered without hesitation. "And does our family's money change anything about that love?" Peter thought for a moment. "No. It changes nothing about how I feel for her. It only changes how I'll have to prove I deserve her." "Peter," Mrs. Thompson approached, "may I hold my grandson?" Peter looked at Jennifer, who nodded yes. He gently took Michael from his mother's arms and handed him to his grandmother. Mrs. Thompson held the baby carefully and affectionately. Michael smiled at her, melting any resistance that might still remain. "He's beautiful," she whispered, "just like Jennifer when she was a baby. Would you like to sit down?" Peter offered his armchair. "Thank you." Peter remained standing, still processing the whole situation. "Peter," Richard said, "I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" "A job. When you're fully recovered, I'd like to offer you a position at my company." Peter looked at him suspiciously. "What kind of position?" "Construction supervisor. You have hands-on experience that many engineers lack. It would be a respectable position with a fair salary." "I don't want charity," Peter said firmly. "And it's not charity, it's recognition of your professional worth." Jennifer watched the conversation silently, hoping it would work out. "Peter," Mrs. Thompson said, still holding Michael, "may I tell you something about my daughter?" "Of course." I raised her to be a porcelain doll, protected, spoiled, never knowing the value of things. When she ran away, I was furious." Peter listened attentively. "But today, seeing the strong, independent woman she has become, seeing how you and your friends respect her, I understand that you did for her what I never could." "What was that?" "Teach her the value of honest work and personal dignity." Peter was visibly moved. "Mrs. Thompson, I always knew Jennifer was special, from the very first day, but I never imagined she had been through so much to get here. And now that you know, now I admire her even more." He looked at Jennifer with love. "And I understand why she fought so hard to prove she could make it on her own." Michael started crying, signaling he was hungry. "I'll prepare the bottle." Jennifer stood up. "Let me do it," Peter said. "You stay with your family." When Peter left for the kitchen, Mrs. Thompson turned to Jennifer. "He's a good man. He's the best man I've ever known, Mum. And he truly loves you, as I love him. Then we must find a way to unite our families respectfully." Richard smiled, seeing his mother's transformation. "Mum, you've changed so much over these years." "Losing a daughter makes you rethink many things, Richard. It makes you realize family is more important than social status." Peter returned with the bottle and gently fed Michael while Mrs. Thompson watched. "He's a good father," she commented. "The best," Jennifer confirmed. "Peter," Mrs. Thompson said, "I'd like to make a request." "Of course. I'd like you two to get married properly, with a ceremony, reception, everything as it should be." Peter and Jennifer looked at each other. "Mrs. Elizabeth, we can't afford to throw a party." "Who said you're paying?" She smiled. "I'm the mother of the bride. It's my responsibility." "Mom," Jennifer began. "I won't take no for an answer. My first grandchild deserves parents who are officially married, and I deserve to see my daughter walking down the aisle." Peter looked at Jennifer, who had tears in her eyes. "Jennifer, do you want to marry me? Officially in church with your family present?" "I do," she answered without hesitation. "Then it's settled." Mrs. Elizabeth clapped her hands. "Let's organize a wedding." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the weeks that followed, everyone's life changed drastically. Mrs. Elizabeth became a constant presence in Hope Village, getting to know the neighbors and getting involved in the wedding preparations. To everyone's surprise, she adapted well to the simplicity of the neighborhood and was accepted by the community. Peter started regularly visiting Richard's office, discussing projects, and preparing to take on his new responsibilities once he was fully recovered. At first, there was a natural tension between the two men, but they soon developed mutual respect. Jennifer continued working at the construction site, but now with the certainty that she could balance her work with the engineering studies that Richard offered to pay for. 1 month after the reunion, they were gathered at Peter and Jennifer's house planning the wedding details when a neighbor knocked on the door in desperation. "Jennifer, Jennifer," Mrs. Mary shouted, "I need your help." "What happened, Mrs. Mary?" Jennifer quickly opened the door. "It's my grandson, Tommy. He fell from the roof and is badly hurt. The ambulance takes too long to get here to the village." "Richard," Jennifer turned to her brother, "your car is faster. Can we take the boy to the hospital?" "Of course, let's go." The whole family rushed to the neighbor's house, where they found a boy about 8 years old crying in his grandmother's arms. He had cut his forehead and twisted his foot. "Peter, help carry him," Jennifer requested, switching into the first aid mode she had learned. "Jennifer, do you know what you're doing?" Mrs. Elizabeth asked, worried. "I do, Mom. I learned how to handle accidents at the construction site." They got the boy to the hospital in record time. While waiting in the hallway, Mrs. Mary couldn't stop thanking them. "If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to my grandson." "Don't mention it, Mrs. Mary. That's what neighbors are for," Jennifer replied naturally. Mrs. Elizabeth watched her daughter caring for others with the same naturalness she showed when caring for her own family. It was a Jennifer she had never known. "Richard," she whispered to her son, "your sister has become an extraordinary person." "I know, Mom, and she learned all this here, with these simple but genuine people. When the doctor came to inform them that the boy was fine, With just some stitches on his forehead and a mild sprain in his foot, everyone celebrated. "Doctor," Mrs. Elizabeth approached, "how much was the treatment? Are you family of the child?" "No, but I want to take responsibility for the expenses." "Mom, you don't need to," Jennifer tried to intervene. "Of course I need to. It's my way of giving back to this community that took such good care of you." Mrs. Mary began to cry with emotion. "You don't know how much this means to us," she told Mrs. Elizabeth. "Yes, I do. You took care of my daughter when she needed it most. Now it's my turn to give back." On the way back home, Mrs. Elizabeth was thoughtful. "Jennifer, I have an idea." "What idea, Mom?" "What if we set up a health clinic here in the village? A small one, but one that could handle the community's basic emergencies." "Mom, that would cost a lot of money." "Richard," Elizabeth Thompson turned to her son, "isn't your company building a hospital in the region?" "Yes." "What if we partnered up? The main hospital in the central region and a health clinic here in the village?" Richard was surprised by his mother's social growth. "That's an excellent idea, Mother. We can study the feasibility." "And I can help with the project," Jennifer perked up. "With my construction knowledge and studying engineering, I can contribute a lot. And I know the real needs of the community," Peter added. "Then it's decided," Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "Our first joint family project." When they got home, they found Mrs. Barbara waiting at the door with a cake. "I heard you helped Mrs. Mary with her grandson," said the pregnant woman. "I brought a cake to say thank you." "Mrs. Barbara, you didn't have to," Jennifer protested. "Of course I did. You're family to us now." Mrs. Elizabeth was touched by the simple but caring gesture. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Barbara. I accept with great pleasure." "You're also welcome in our community," Mrs. Barbara smiled. "Any mother of Jennifer's is our mother too." That evening, as they drank coffee and ate Mrs. Barbara's cake, the family talked about the future. "Mother," Jennifer said, "thank you for accepting my life, for accepting Peter and Michael." "Jennifer, I'm the one who should be thankful. You taught me that true family is the one that supports each other unconditionally. And I learned that love knows no social class," Peter added. "And I learned that money is only worth something when it's used to do good," Richard concluded. Michael, in Mrs. Elizabeth's lap, slept peacefully, unaware of the changes his existence had brought to the family. "You know what amazes me the most?" Mrs. Elizabeth said, looking at her grandson. "What, Mother?" "That this child was born from the union of two people who truly love each other, regardless of social differences. That is a love that will last forever." "Like our family love," Jennifer smiled. "Exactly. Nothing will ever separate us again." 2 weeks later, on the wedding day, the small church in Hope Village was packed. The whole community had come together to throw a beautiful party for Jennifer and Peter. Mrs. Elizabeth had insisted on paying for everything, but she respected the simple style the couple wanted. Jennifer was radiant in a simple yet elegant dress. Peter at the altar couldn't stop smiling. Richard was the best man, and Mrs. Elizabeth held Michael throughout the entire ceremony. "Peter," said the priest, "do you take Jennifer to be your wife, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer?" "I do," Peter replied, looking into Jennifer's eyes. "And I promise that no matter where she came from or where she will go, my love for her will always be the same." "Jennifer," the priest turned to her, "do you take Peter to be your husband, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer?" "I do," she answered with an emotional voice. "And I promise that, no matter what changes life brings us, my love for you will always be true." When they exchanged rings, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. Mrs. Barbara cried with emotion, the construction co-workers applauded, and Mrs. Elizabeth smiled proudly at her daughter. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," announced the priest. "You may kiss the bride." The kiss sealed not only the union of Peter and Jennifer, but also the final reconciliation between the families. At the party that followed, organized in the church hall, Mrs. Elizabeth surprised everyone by making a speech. "I want to thank this wonderful community that took care of my daughter when she needed it most. You taught me that family isn't just blood, it's also who stands by our side in difficult times. The party was simple but joyful. Peter and Jennifer danced the waltz to the sound of a guitar played by a neighbor. Michael slept in the laps of various uncles and aunts from the village. Richard, Peter approached his brother-in-law during the party. Thank you for everything. Thank you for taking such good care of my sister. Can I ask you a question? Of course. Did you really change because of Jennifer's disappearance, or are you just trying to make up for the past? Richard thought honestly about the question. A little of both, he admitted. But mostly losing her made me realize I was following an empty path. Having you back in the family gave me purpose again. I'm glad she has you and Mrs. Elizabeth back. And I'm glad she has you and this amazing community. Months later, the health clinic in Hope Village was up and running. Jennifer had finished her technical course and was studying civil engineering with a full scholarship. Peter had taken on the supervisor position at Richard's company and was standing out for his competence and leadership. Michael had become the joy of the whole family. Mrs. Elizabeth visited him almost daily, and the little boy already knew how to say Grandma perfectly. Jennifer, Peter said one evening, as they watched Michael playing on the floor, do you regret anything? Running away from home? That. Lying about where I came from, all the hardship we went through. Jennifer thought carefully about her answer. I don't regret a thing. If I hadn't run away, I never would have met you. I never would have discovered my own strength. I never would have learned the value of honest work. And what if your family had never found you? Then our life would still be happy, even without their money, because true happiness doesn't come from material things. But you have to admit it's been nice having their support. It has, she smiled. Mostly because now it's a choice. They support us because they want to, not because we have to accept it. Michael, Peter called to his son, who was crawling toward him. Come to Daddy. The child smiled and sped up, tumbling into his father's lap with a happy little giggle. You know what makes me happiest? Jennifer said, watching her husband and son. What? Knowing that Michael will grow up knowing both worlds. He'll know that money is important, but it isn't everything. He'll learn to value hard work, but also how to use privilege responsibly. He'll be a better man than all of us, Peter agreed. Absolutely. Richard arrived just then with a work folder. Sorry to interrupt, but I have a proposal for you. What proposal? Jennifer asked. The health clinic project was so successful that the city wants to replicate the model in other communities. They want to hire our company to build 5 more similar clinics. That's wonderful news, and Peter got excited. But there's a condition. They want Jennifer to be the lead engineer on the project. Richard, I haven't graduated yet. But you can work as an engineering assistant until you do. It's an incredible opportunity to gain practical experience. What about me? Peter asked. You would be the general supervisor for all the construction sites, a promotion and a significant pay raise. Jennifer and Peter looked at each other, excited about the possibilities. I accept, Jennifer said. Provided Mrs. Barbara can work as an administrative assistant, she needs a less strenuous job because of her pregnancy. Of course, and Frank can be the general foreman. He knows the local workers well. Perfect, Peter smiled. We'll do an amazing job. I'm sure you will. Richard put the papers away. Oh, and Mom asked me to tell you there's a family lunch on Sunday. She's making Grandma's special codfish. Richard, Jennifer called as he was leaving. Thank you. For what? For looking for me. For not giving up. For supporting my choices. Thank you for teaching me that family is about acceptance and unconditional support. After Richard left, Peter and Jennifer kept talking about their future projects. You know, when I first met you, I never imagined I'd get this far, Peter said. What do you mean? Married to an engineer, working in a responsible position, with a family that accepts me. Peter, you always deserved all this. You just needed an opportunity. And you gave me that opportunity when you insisted I deserved your love. Because you truly do deserve it. Michael had fallen asleep in his father's arms. Jennifer carefully picked him up and put him in the crib. Peter, she said when she returned, I want to tell you something. What? I'm pregnant again. Peter looked at her with wide eyes. Really? I found out this morning. We went and made a little sister for Michael. Jennifer! He hugged her and spun her around the room. This is wonderful. Are you happy? I'm more than happy. I'm fulfilled. I am too. And you know why? Why? Because now our children will grow up in a close-knit family, with love, with honest work, and with all the opportunities we can offer. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be real. And that's better than perfect. They stayed embraced, thinking about the future they were building together. A family based on true love, mutual respect, and the certainty that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is who you choose to be. The following Sunday, the whole family was gathered at Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson's house for the traditional lunch. The large table seated Richard, his new girlfriend Catherine, a teacher he had met through one of the social projects, Jennifer, Peter, Michael, and Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson. I have an announcement to make, Jennifer said once everyone was served. What announcement? Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson asked curiously. You're going to be an uncle and a grandmother again, she smiled. Jennifer, Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson rose from her chair. You're pregnant. I am. Oh my goodness. The older woman began to cry with joy. Another grandbaby. Or granddaughter, Peter corrected, smiling. Congratulations. Richard stood up to hug his sister. The family is growing, and how wonderful that it's growing together, Catherine commented. You two are an example of how love overcomes any difference. Michael, in his high chair, clapped his hands without really understanding what was happening, but joining in the general happiness. You know what this means? Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson said, already thinking about the preparations. What, Mom? That I need to redo the children's room in my house for when you all come to spend weekends here. Mom, you don't have to... Of course I do. My grandchildren have to have a special room at Grandma's house. And we'll need a bigger room in our house too, Peter added. With 2 children, we're going to need more space. We can help with that, Richard offered. Not as a favor, Peter was sure to clarify. As a loan, we'll pay it back when I get my first promotion. Agreed, Richard smiled, respecting his brother-in-law's pride. Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson looked around the table, seeing her family together and happy. You know what I've learned from this whole story, she said. What, Mum? Jennifer asked. I learned that sometimes we need to lose someone to truly understand the value that person has in our life. And I learned that true family is the one that accepts you with your mistakes and supports your growth, Richard added. I learned that love doesn't know social classes, Peter said, holding Jennifer's hand. And I learned that the courage to start over is worth more than any inheritance, Jennifer finished. Michael babbled something that sounded vaguely like family, making everyone laugh. Even Michael knows what the most important thing in life is, Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson said, taking her grandson into her lap. After lunch, while the men watched football and Mrs. Elizabeth Thompson played with Michael, Jennifer and Catherine talked in the garden. Jennifer, Catherine said, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you regret having gone through so much suffering before getting to where you are now? Jennifer thought about the question as she watched her family through the window. I don't regret anything, she finally answered, because all the suffering I went through made me appreciate what I have today. It made me understand that true happiness isn't in what you possess, but in who you love and who loves you back. You're a very courageous woman. I'm not courageous. I'm just a woman who decided to fight for her own happiness. That is courage. Maybe it is. But you know what else? Any woman can do this. Anyone can decide to start over, can choose to be happy, can build the life they truly want. It's an inspiring lesson. It's a life lesson. And I'm happy that my children will grow up knowing this. When the sun began to set, the family prepared to return to their homes. Elizabeth Thompson couldn't stop kissing and hugging everyone. Thank you, she said to Peter before he left. Why, Mrs. Thompson? For taking such good care of my daughter, for making her happy, for giving me a beautiful grandson, and now another little grandchild on the way. Thank you for accepting me into the family. Peter, you don't understand. You weren't accepted into the family. You saved our family. How so? Before you, we were rich, but empty people. Now we're a real family, rich in love and unity. Peter was moved by his mother-in-law's words. Mrs. Thompson, can I ask you something? Of course. When the baby is born, would you like to be the godmother? Elizabeth Thompson began to cry with emotion. It would be the greatest honor of my life. On the way back home, Peter and Jennifer talked about how their lives had changed. Jennifer, Peter said, driving carefully, do you remember what you said the day we met? I said a lot of things. What specifically? You said you wanted to prove that you could live alone without depending on anyone. I remember. And you did. But you know what else? You proved that it's possible to be independent and still be part of a family that loves you. Yeah, I got the best of both worlds. We did. True. We did. Michael slept in the back seat, gently swaying with the motion of the car. Inside Jennifer's belly, another child grew, promising more joy for the family. Peter, Jennifer said softly. Yes? I love you. I love you too, and I love the life we built together. Even with all the difficulties we went through, especially because of them, they made us stronger. When they arrived home, Hope Village was peaceful. The lights from the neighbors' houses created a warm and safe environment. It was there that their children would grow up, learning the value of hard work, community, and true love. Lying in bed that night after putting Michael to sleep, Jennifer and Peter planned the future. What are we going to name the baby? Peter asked, with his hand on Jennifer's still small belly. If it's a boy, how about Paul? It was my grandfather's name. Paul is beautiful, and if it's a girl, Hope, like the name of our village. Hope, Peter repeated. It's perfect, because it was here that we found our hope for happiness. It was here that our family truly began. And it's here that we'll raise our children to be good people, people who know that it doesn't matter where you're born or how much money you have. What matters is having character, honesty, and love in your heart. Exactly. They fell silent for a moment, listening to the nighttime sounds of the neighborhood. A dog barking in the distance, the sound of a television in the next house, the wind in the trees. Peter, Jennifer whispered. Yes, thank you for teaching me what it means to truly love. Thank you for giving me a family. We gave each other a family. True, and what a beautiful family we've created. And it will become even more beautiful with the baby's arrival. It will be perfect. It will be real. And that is better than any perfection. They fell asleep in each other's arms, dreaming of the future they were building together. A future based on true love, honest work, and the certainty that family is the most precious thing anyone can have. The next morning, Jennifer woke up early as always to go to work. But this time, instead of feeling the weight of responsibility, she felt only gratitude. Gratitude for having a life that made sense, a job that gave her purpose, a family that loved her unconditionally. Peter prepared the coffee while she got ready. Michael played on the floor with his simple but beloved toys. Jennifer, Peter said, pouring the coffee. Tonight I'll start assembling the new crib. All ready? I want everything to be ready when the baby comes. Peter, there are still 8 months to go. But I want our home to be perfect to welcome this new gift. Jennifer smiled, kissing her husband before leaving for work. I love you. I love you too. Be careful at the construction site. I always am. At the health clinic construction site, Jennifer was greeted with joy by her colleagues who already knew about the pregnancy. Congratulations, Jennifer, said Frank. Another little angel on the way. Thank you, Frank. And how is the project going? It's going very well. Next week we start construction on the second clinic. You must be proud of your progress. I am, but do you know what I'm most proud of? What? That I've managed to balance my professional life with my personal life without giving up either. You're an example to all women, Jennifer. I hope I'm an example that it is indeed possible to have it all: family, career, love, and dignity. During the day while working, Jennifer thought about how her life had completely changed. 2 years earlier, she was a woman without purpose, living a life she hadn't chosen. Now she was a fulfilled woman, married to the man she loved, mother to a beautiful son and expecting another, building a solid career and with a family that supported her. More important than anything, she was happy, genuinely happy. When she got home that night, she found Peter assembling the new crib in the bedroom, with Michael helping by holding the screws. "How was work at the site?" Peter asked without stopping his work. "Productive. And here?" "Michael was my assistant all day, isn't that right, champ?" The boy laughed and clapped his hands, proud to be helping his father. "Peter." Jennifer sat on the bed, watching her husband and son. "Sometimes I'm afraid that all of this is a dream." "Why?" "Because it's too much happiness for one person." "Jennifer, you deserve all this happiness. You fought hard to get here." "We fought hard." "True. And now we'll reap the fruits of our struggle." "Forever?" "Forever." Michael crawled to his mother and raised his little arms, asking to be held. Jennifer picked him up and hugged him tightly, smelling the lovely baby scent she loved so much. "Michael," she whispered in her son's ear, "Mommy and Daddy love you very much, and we'll love your little sister or little brother very much too." The baby didn't understand the words, but he felt the love in his mother's tone of voice. "Jennifer." Peter stopped assembling the crib and came closer. "Can I make you a promise?" "What promise?" "I promise I'll do everything so our children grow up knowing they are loved, that family is sacred, and that honest work dignifies anyone." "I make the same promise," she replied. "And I also promise that I'll teach them that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is who you choose to be." "Perfect." "Peter." "Yes?" "Thank you for coming into my life. Thank you for choosing to stay in mine." They sealed the promise with a kiss, while Michael played in his mother's lap, unaware that he was witnessing one of the most important moments in his family's history. The end of the story. Now tell me what you thought of this moving story of overcoming challenges and true love. Do you believe Jennifer made the right choices? Which part touched you the most? Leave your comment with sincere words about this journey of a family that found each other again through love. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will touch your heart.